Hi everyone, Steve Wasik, VP of Talent Services, husband, father, and cat guy. Welcome.
Hello, I am Katie Hillary, our Chief of Staff of Sales. This morning when I dropped my 4-year-old daughter off at daycare, she was singing Pink Pony Club at the top of her lungs.
Which is an amazing song.
Incredible.
I have not heard it.
Pink Pony Club, I'm going to keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. So that's my 4-year-old.
Which
do
may
know
not be
that.
here in Atlanta.
I do know that.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bert Bean, and I'm CEO of Insight Global. Welcome to our very polished podcast.
Very, very polished. Boys. Today we are going to be talking about the power of messaging. Excited to dive into this with you all today.
It's a biggie.
It's a biggie. It's an awesome one too. I love this topic. So to kick it off, I want to start with the question of what it is that makes a message impactful. What is it about a message, a story that makes it stick, that makes it resonate with people? Who do I want to start with?
Go with Bert. Bert,
All right.
I love how much you love stories.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and just to zoom out a little bit, as any leader, whatever you think your job is, it must start with being a good communicator. I mean, people want to know where we're going. People want to know what the plan is. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to message. It is important. And what people want out of messages, whether they know it or not, is they want to be moved. All of us want to be moved. We want to feel something. We want to be a little inspired. Yes, we want to know what's going on. Yes, we want to know the detail. But really, we want to be moved.
That is truth. Scientist Steve, what you
Yeah,
think?
same. No, I want to be inspired and in ways that give you value. So totally agree, Bert. Like, I think stories are how we craft the narrative of the world we live in. And I think you asked the question, like, what is the best form of that? I think it's something that makes you think. It's actually something that moves you a little bit. That's the right language, to maybe a different way of thinking. Like, that's the stories that change my mind. I'm like, whoa. Like,
Yeah, but also it is. I don't know. It's funny. I know we're both a fan of the show Mad Men.
Love that.
And it is. I feel like I'm one of the few people that has seen actually every episode of that show because I just love the writing.
Yeah.
I love the messaging in every single episode. I mean, the writing is killer.
How many episodes do we think this is?
Well, it's like
seasons?
6 or 7 seasons.
Okay.
It's probably 20 episodes a season, something like. And they were long.
I'm all the way
It's a
through twice.
slow burn.
Not to brag, but I'm all the way through.
Okay.
2.5 times.
So halfway through season 1, in fact, right before the show, their first half, they broke and went to the holiday break. The last episode of the first season in the first half was about the carousel. Remember that?
Yes.
So this is the icon. So Kodak, I think, has come to them, and they want Don Draper and his firm to sell this slide projector that drums up all these pictures, and it's this old class. My grandparents used to have one of these things, and they call it the wheel. And Don Draper is trying to think about how to pitch it and sell it, and he talks about this product that it's not he talks about messaging, and one of the best pieces of marketing is new, right? When things are new, we tend to listen in and okay, that's cool. But he says there's also another one, and this gets back to these things that move you, not necessarily to a new way of thinking. He says there's also one other thing that's actually quite powerful that can move you. And he says it's nostalgia.
Yep.
And actually the writing and how he says it is perfect. He says nostalgia, it's delicate but potent. And that is right. I mean, there are things that when we hear messages and we hear things, if it makes us sort of long for or ache for a time we want to go back again, that's powerful. And now that you just moved me in that way, not even to a new way of thinking, but to something that I used to feel or think about or go there, now you've really got me. Now I'm gripped, and now whatever else you say next, I'm all in for.
That is interesting, the two ends of the spectrum, that you could be moved for the hope or the promise of something new and something different, or to be brought back to something that is comforting from the nostalgia of the past. I mean, you see that in marketing, you see that in politics, you see that in fashion. Right now, the resurgence of the 90s, there's something nostalgic and comforting about the smiley face and, the wide jeans. That is kind of an interesting theme, just in messaging and just really in all aspects of life and in culture. So who is great at messaging? Who are the masters at messaging when you think about people? Bert.
Well, yeah. So it kind of depends on how you define master, but because there's a lot of people that message today, and you could say it quite effectively. But I think if you want to go more sort of present day, I think Steve Jobs was the absolute best at that. I mean, he was the guy that...
With his marketing or with his words?
Yeah, it's all. I mean, it's all selling, right? Like, I mean, he worked for a computers company, but he figured out quickly, I'm not going to talk about... It's not about bits and storage and megahertz. No. People want simplicity, and they want beautiful design, and they want things to work. And he was so good about how to communicate that. In fact, as a communicator myself, I mean, how many times have you gone back and watched Steve Jobs' speeches from like different product releases? It is such a lesson for anybody that's trying to be a communicator. And by the way, I think this is helpful to just say, if you want to be a communicator, you need to study it. You need to watch videos.
Yep.
You need to watch other speeches. But I mean, he used language all the time that was so simple and it was so great, and it just fit with people. And one of the things he would say is, it is a noisy world out there, and people aren't going to remember much about us. So we have to be very intentional with what we tell them. And like he knew how to use really simple language like that. And I think if you want to go back and maybe through the last several hundred years, probably the absolute best at this is Abraham Lincoln, right? Like, I mean, he's just
hold on.
Sorry, my
Charlotte. 6:30. Stop! I nailed that. I freaking nailed it. Okay, time out. Before we started filming, I told Char, who's one of our producers, I said, $20 says that Bert makes a nod to a dead president within 7 minutes of filming the podcast. And what are we at? 6:30.
Well, you just set me up, right?
Yeah,
you
that's a setup. Come on.
Fine.
Come on.
It's fine.
Crushed it. I'm honestly elated.
Yes. So let me tell you why I go to Lincoln. Yeah. So let's talk about this.
Go ahead.
So Lincoln, he came up in a time where all the speakers of the day would speak for hours on end. You had no iPhone. You had nothing to distract you. You just had to listen to some dude talk.
Yeah, you just had to lock in.
You kind of liked it because there was nothing out. Your friends were dying of I don't know, polio and the measles. And so it's like, all right, I can listen to this guy, right? And so
might as well.
and so anyway, so he came up in that time, but he was a very simple and easy and clear communicator that people could really latch onto. But the best example of this was after the Battle of Gettysburg. This is right in the middle of the Civil War. I mean, the South is trying to pull away from the country. The country is literally at war with itself. And there's this really big battle that happens, and everybody knew, oh crap, this was a moment. This battle might have changed the whole arc of the war. And so a few months go by, and they want to dedicate the battlefield and make it basically a cemetery. And they bring the head speaker of the time, the guy that was selling out all the speaking engagements, the Brene Brown of the 1860s. This guy, his name is Edward Everett Hale, and he was the president of Harvard. Great speaker. He gets up and he talks for 2 hours, trying to talk about the significance of this battle and what it means and blah, 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 all that stuff. Sits down. Lincoln gets up, and in about 6 minutes, he mic drops the Gettysburg Address. I mean, you go back and read. You go back and read the Gettysburg Address. There is zero fat on that speech.
Yep.
It is so well said. It is so well articulated. It's so good, in fact, that school kids since then have been memorizing that speech, and it is so powerful. And it just shows, as a communicator, you don't have to ramble on for 30 minutes or an hour. You can deliver a really incredible, timeless piece of content in 6 minutes.
Do you think he is, to this day, the best politician when it comes to messaging and storytelling?
A good question. I'm probably not the expert to ask on that.
No, but just not even expert, but like who you've enjoyed studying or watching from the
I certainly think him and Teddy and FDR.
I like JFK.
And Reagan. I think Reagan. I mean, Reagan was called the great communicator.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but a speech that I studied a lot is the Rice Stadium moon speech by JFK.
Yeah, that's a great one.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade or the next, not because it's easy, but because it is hard.
Yeah.
Because that effort will organize whatever.
But
that speech to me is one to study because, to your point, Bert, it's got a really simple structure. and he just lets it. It's relatively simple, but it actually has there's some detail there. Like he says, we go to the moon.
But he doesn't just. You just said it. What's so powerful about great speakers is how they obsess over word selection.
Yes.
So he says we choose to go to the moon.
That's right.
He could have said we're going to go to the moon. Okay, that's cool. But he says we choose to go to the moon, and that is like totally different, right? So word selection in messaging and communicating is so important. Anybody that's trying to be a communicator should really pour over what they're going to say and what they're going to write. And as Hemingway likes to say, everyone's first draft is shit. So know that. And you got to like really make each word work for it, because each word is so important.
There's then the next step of that when you're speaking. And I love to keep this in mind when I'm speaking, is in order to be inspiring to others, you need to be inspired. And it's one thing to have the right word selection. There's something folks don't think about when they're messaging, but like, how do you get your emotion to match the word?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where we go to Dr. King. Because Dr. King was epic at creating the emotion of what he was speaking about. And if he's telling a story, and if it's quiet in the story, or if there's something, he's going to get quiet. But then if he's talking about a thunderous movement toward whatever, like all of a sudden his voice starts to boom. And then you're like, okay. But yeah, those are things to think about when they're on topic.
Also, just there's different approaches too. If you're planning out a story, right, and if the first draft is going to be shit and you have to practice, but then there's also a difference between a speech and then the art of telling a story, and that is also something that you can practice and something that you maybe don't plan, but that you just naturally get good at, and that can capture an audience. And whether it's off the cuff and at a dinner table or in addressing a large group, that can be so moving, or a company that can be so moving. On the note of politicians, I'm from Arizona. I don't know if this is just because I'm from Arizona that he was such a big deal to me, but are you guys familiar with John McCain?
Of course. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I probably don't know your Michigan senator from.
Yeah, John McCain was a national guy.
Yeah.
Ran for president.
Yeah.
Epic dude. Yeah.
So he was a senator for as long as I can remember, but he probably came on my radar in middle school, I guess. And he was being interviewed on like some ABC show. And like, of all the millions of things that are going on in like a preteen's mind, like John McCain stuck with me forever because of his story that he told. And, maybe you're familiar with it, but you probably are, but it's so crazy. And forever I will remember it, because he was 31 years old, married, 3 children. I think there were like 1, 3, and 5, like my kids' ages, and was fighting in the Vietnam War. And he's, being interviewed, fighting in Vietnam, flying a fighter jet, and his plane crashes. As he's going down, breaks an arm and a leg, lands in the water, and the locals, civilians, come and take him, bring him onto land, and beat the shit out of him, as you would if someone was bombing your city. Military comes and takes him back to their prisoner of war camp, figure out who he is, and say, your father is a high-ranking military official. We will grant you early release. He declines that, saying, I'm good unless you allow all the other prisoners to come with me. They don't take kindly to that, and instead, they torture him, and they put him in solitary confinement for 2 years. He is a prisoner of war for 5.5 years. Some of the most precious years of his kid's life, of his own life. Unbelievable experience until the war ends and he's finally released. And I remember just being 12, 13 years old. This story transcends political parties. At the time, I didn't even know Republican, Democrat. It transcends politics. It transcends
for sure.
All that. It's just a human being. And I didn't even know what it meant to be a senator, but hearing that story, the power of that made me know that that's a guy that I trusted. Whatever his job was in D.C., representing the 7 million people of Arizona, I trusted him. And the power of him being able to tell that story in such a moving way, I wanted him to lead me, because I knew he was loyal. I knew he was a patriot. I knew that he was a fighter. And that was so powerful to me. And that's when I really became captivated with the power of what a story could do. I love that. I think it's amazing.
Can I hit a little science off of that?
Yeah.
So,
what is that?
Do you know why you remember that?
Yes. No.
Why do you remember?
Because first of all, it disgusted me. It shocked me that a person could I think it just like disgusted and shocked me that a person could go through that. And also, even now, if I can be honest and a little bit like maybe embarrassed of my answer, but vulnerable with it, like I don't know that I'm saying no to the early release.
Well, it also if you watch John McCain as the senator like 30 years later, when he would wave at people, he would always. If you ever remember, he never could outstretch his hand. And the reason why, if you ever noticed that, is because they broke both of his arms and they didn't heal back correctly because he was in a POW camp for 5 years.
Yeah, he didn't get a cast.
Yes. Just dislocating his arms over and over and over.
Dude, so Bert said from Steve Jobs, it's a noisy world, right? And this is wild. So if you think about why you remember certain things and why you forget others, you walk around throughout the course of the day, information gets stored in your hippocampus, and then at night you get REM sleep, and some of the information of the day converts into your memory, and some of your brain throws out the others, right? So if I asked you 3 weeks ago what you had for lunch, you would never be able to tell me, right? Unless you eat the same thing for lunch every day. But if you had lunch with your mom 3 weeks ago, and she told you something intense, something personal, something's going on, you might remember like everything you ate, everything she ate. So why? It's emotion. Like we're not thinking machines like we think we are. We're actually feeling machines that think. Your brain determines what will I remember, what should I remember, what should I forget, based on emotion. So all of that information of the day, what you were wearing, what was happening, your brain's like, there's some emotion there. I better remember that for the future.
Yeah.
That's why people want to be moved.
That's why people want to be moved.
Because they want to remember. Right. They want to know this is what we have to do, and they're not going to.
So put that in the context of work. Here's our strategy for the year ahead on this very original PowerPoint slide.
Kill me now.
Transformational bullshit. Like, okay, and then we just go have REM sleep that night, and Yellowstone is what stuck in my brain that night. It was not your transformational bullshit thing. That was just
the Kodak carousel from season 1.
That's why Don Draper matters.
Yeah,
because it's not a wheel; it's a carousel. Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's wild. Like I love so this actually kind of becomes important. Like think about your life. Think about the biggest memories you've had. Like that stuff is super interesting now.
Okay, can you science me on this one?
Yeah.
When I was thinking about who just good storytellers in general, I also am very drawn to musicians, specifically really good songwriters.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, Bob Dylan, I think, captures the 60s so well. I still haven't seen the movie yet with Timothy
Chalamet. I don't believe yet. I don't know. He's like the guy.
Have we seen it yet? I don't want to judge.
I love songwriters that can write good, lyrics and stuff. I hate Bob Dylan though.
Is it just because he's?
It's a
do you
big
not like
part
the
of it.
performance part?
Have you not heard the song Hurricane?
I've heard. I do all of it.
So good.
Tangled
So
Up
what
in
is it?
Blue.
Yeah.
What is Tangled Up in Blue about?
Wait, is
You
this
have no
also?
idea.
Yeah.
This is like. Get over it, pal. I'm sorry.
Does this in some way? This is also reminding me of a Bert Bean hot take. Would you care to share your stance on musicals? Can I force a hot take out of Bert Bean?
I mean, Bob Dylan, yeah, boy, he almost look, I like really good songwriters, but he's so, it's the same thing for a musical. I don't like watching grown men sing because there's the whining and the moaning and the swaying, and he's a lot of that. Bob Dylan is a lot of.
You don't like the body language of singing?
Like you go to a musical and you watch a grown man singing on stage. I'm like, dude, don't do that. People can see you doing that. I'm embarrassed for you. Stop. Like,
you get some secondhand embarrassment.
When I took my kids to see The Lion King in New York, I was like, get me out of here from the first note.
Yeah.
And they come out and they sing, and it's that circle of life. Like, that one. And you know what? It's really cool when a cartoon does that. When it's a grown man.
I'm very
doing
deep
that.
into Wicked right now.
Love it.
Defying gravity on the way to work.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's okay. All right, where were we?
We're on. Okay, so
you like Bob Dylan?
I like Bob Dylan. I think he's an amazing
Get your tent out of my backyard, Bob Dylan. Got it.
Paul Simon, also incredible storyteller. Okay, but I'm curious if you have the science behind this. Why does my brain remember the lyrics of songs that I haven't listened to for 30 years that come up? And I don't
think it's different than what we just talked about. I think they meant something to you. and so you stored them.
Yeah,
and there's also repetition. There's other ways we learn, by the way. That's a way you will learn things. That's one pathway.
But to
but
your
like
point,
repetition is another.
And to your point, Katie, like whenever the band Blues Traveler came out, okay, they had that green album, and they came that song came out when I got my own room. And I got my own stereo, and I could play that CD over and I play in my room with it, and I could play it and listen to it, and I didn't. And so like that was like a transformational time for me. The first time I could do that, and so 100%. I mean, Hook. I mean that whole song is
so
locked,
cool.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So
because
cool.
of that. Yeah.
Just God forbid you ever had to watch that man sing on stage. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Never.
See, there's a lot. He's a sweaty guy.
Yeah. Oh, he's a sweaty.
That's where I draw the line. Steve, any personal experiences with excellent storytellers in your life?
A few, yes.
Yeah?
My favorite.
Well, I know you've had amazing leaders, so I'm assuming some of them have been great messengers.
Kirby would be my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kirby would be my favorite, just because he was like wild and so. For those of you who don't know, Kirby was with the company for a long time. He was many of our mentors.
I love that Kirby has almost become like a Sting or a Prince, just like a one name. You don't even have to say Kirby style anymore. It's just Kirby.
That's a great point. I mean, there's probably a lot of people in the company that just wouldn't even know his last name.
Yeah.
But they're just like Kirby.
Yeah.
Great axes, grit, chopping wood, let's go. That's wild.
So Kirby.
But yeah, we lost Kirby way too early to a battle with esophageal cancer. But I was really lucky. I spent a lot of years with Kirby. And he was one of the best storytellers ever. And it was in the moment though, it was almost like people were like, another story, like here he goes again. But there was something he did that was super powerful. And I've actually kind of crystallized this into like a way of using stories as a way to change culture. So something Kirby would do, it was really fun to be around, is he would sort of stop traffic. Like Kirby was not the type to wait for like the town hall to tell his story. It was like now. It was like, let's stop. Hold on a second. Like what? Hold on, guys. Let's slow down. And then he would kind of go slow. He would set up the scene. He would do what great storytellers do, but he would tell the story of what Katie did in the context of what she could have done. Like, hey guys, we're in a meeting and this happened, and Katie could have done this, but instead she took this path. And he would just like help you really understand.
I love that.
Like and now I realize like he was kind of teaching you what you should be doing, but he wouldn't stop there. There's two other things he would do. So he would then sort of play it forward. Like, Katie, what you just did was remarkable. Like you could have just done this. You did this. That's really hard. What happens to you if you continue to do that? Like, what if that becomes your consistent pattern of behavior? What would happen to you? And then it makes you're like, he's like, are you in the next role in the company? Or are you in maybe like the next role?
Oh, I love that. I'm even motivated hearing that right now.
And then he would like zoom out and talk to the crowd now.
Yeah.
He'd say, what if we all did what Katie just did as our consistent pattern of behavior? What would happen to us? Right? And then he would personalize the message at the end. And this is where, like, as like a 23-year-old like person, I'm like, I don't really get what this guy's doing. I now understand. He would create emotion. And like, it was common for Kirby to cry. He's like a tough guy, Michigan, played football, like as tall as he is wide, just like but he would like get really emotional and he would connect and care about why it mattered that you got better today. And he would cry.
But what he's also doing that not enough leaders realize is so important when it comes to communicating is he's like fully committing to it. Yeah. He's fully committing to that moment to tell that story or to tell that message. And the reason why we don't commit is because it's scary and it's hard. And what if they don't like it? And what if they eye roll me? It's another story. And most times whenever somebody decides to like go into, let's say, telling a story or a leader steps up to tell a big message that's going to have a lot of emotion in it, we don't ever think, oh man, that must be really hard for them. Like they're having to step out on that wobbly branch and say it and hope it. They're probably scared it doesn't go well. But that's everybody what we all think that are doing it. Kirby was still thinking that deep down, like, all right, I'm going to kind of go for this. Hopefully this lands. And he's stepping into that moment and he's fully committing to it. And that's why, like, that's a scary move for people. That's why I've got a lot of respect for leaders that can step out there and do it, because you got to like fully send it.
Yeah, I mean, he would fully send it, not only in his voice and with his emotion, but he physically would send it. I remember remember how much he would sweat, you guys? Like he would His back, I remember hugging him after a speech one conference, and his back was drenched.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if that guy was going to speak,
absolutely drenched.
It's a bad day to be a Joseph A. Banks suit. Because that thing is never going to be the same.
Never
going to be the same. Yeah. What I just reflecting on Kirby when I was building Compass, like what I realized about his storytelling is what he was actually doing by telling those stories is he was setting expectations for everyone who was listening.
Yeah.
And he was like, that story I told about the exceptional thing that Katie did yesterday, tomorrow, that's our standard. And so he would play offense with stories in the way that you described, Bert, like to commit. But then the next day, if you were off of the behavior that he just set expectations by telling you this long story about Katie, he was quick.
That's the new bar.
To be like, hey.
Yeah. Remember we covered this.
Where are you? Where are you? Because I thought we talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was loving. He was still loving, but it was pretty tough. And he was pretty quick to be like, not anymore. But just imagine, that's like, it's like just layer after layer after layer of doing that. Like you can quickly take a group from point A to point B.
Good storytellers and good messengers are also just fun to be around. Like my dad he is such a good storyteller. He was an attorney, and just growing up, it was so much fun. He would come home from work, and he's a very competitive guy. So he would tell stories from the courtroom, and with such passion, like you talk about, like committing, it was as if I was there. He would sweat and he'd get into it and he'd talk about how he pinned the other attorney and told him this and did that and landed the point, and the judge said, "You've got it, Mr. Prosecutor." And it was just so, I mean, it was passionate, it was amazing. He also, I mean, I think there's such an art to telling a story where the person can weave in, and my dad is so good at this too, he will weave in beautiful details that you don't even know are relevant until the punchline at the end, but he'll drop them along the way. And then finally when he lands the punchline, it's like, oh, all of that really matters. Like I just love being around those good communicators, those great storytellers.
It creates an environment you want to be a part of.
Yes.
And it's hard, but like, so
it's magnetic, it's charismatic.
Yeah, I would teach the framework I just talked about, the Kirby framework for storytelling and praise in a workshop I did for Compass. And then I would teach it, and then I would just turn it on the audience and be like, so just curious, like, does anybody have any praise for anyone here where you could use my method and give that person praise? Maybe you just haven't said it to them. And then every time I would get people crying.
Wow.
Because it would be, we would do
because
the story.
they were at this training with other people from their team.
That's right. That's right. And then I would just unleash that model.
Oh, that's incredible.
And then there'd be all this emotion that maybe was built up that just would like pour out. And then I would ask people, like, is that how you normally operate? And tell me about how you felt in the last 6 minutes while that person was talking. And then people would say stuff like, that was the best 6 minutes of work in the last 12 months.
Well, it's interesting because the structure that you just outlined, there isn't emotion in the structure that you just said, but when done correctly, it is woven with such emotion.
You know, it's funny, watching it in the workshop, it's like, it's a skill to build, and certain leaders, they would get to the last bit where you got to personalize the message, and it would almost be like a little kid on like riding a bike for the first time, where you can see like, they're trying, they're getting there. And then sometimes you'd be like, oh, they just caught it. And now they're just riding.
Yeah.
And they got to emotion, and it was natural. And here we go.
But that's what but you have
amazing.
to practice it.
Yeah, it's practice.
Like the problem, you know, for natural storytellers, maybe like your dad, or I think of like a Tommy Cadden, is that's not like that there are some people like those folks that are just naturally have it. Most people don't. Most people really have to work it. Most people need to study a framework. They need to study other communicators. They need to challenge themselves to. I mean, I think you, by reading a ton, it shapes how you think about words and sentence structure and things like that. By writing a ton, and then by just I mean, I write down. I'm constantly writing down lines that people have said that I just love, that I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. That's a great piece of content. Could I use that somewhere?
So wait, let's talk about that a little bit more. So I completely agree. And I even think people who are naturally good at it, I think it's important to get even better.
Right.
But so it's reading great messages, watching people who deliver beautiful speeches. But what are you specifically pulling out? How do you take something from watching it for entertainment purposes and actually consume it in a way that's educational, that you can apply to yourself and become better at that skill?
So it all starts in what you're trying to get better at. I am always, the things that we value are the things we're going to focus on. So I'm always trying to be a better communicator. So everything I read, everything I hear, listen to, I'm always thinking, is that content I could use always, right? And so like this guy David Roche, he won this 100-mile race in Leadville, and it was the same one that I ran, and it was the first ever 100-mile race that he won. He said this in like an article somebody interviewed him. I just loved it because they were like, "How did you do this? It was your first 100, and not only did you win it, you like shattered the 20-year-old course record." And he was talking about like his lack of experience, and he said the idea that you need to have done something before in order to make a result more probable can limit your ability to break through. He says, I wasn't burdened by past bad experiences at that distance. And so
that's incredible.
I write that down, and I'm like, okay, that's, how can I either take that content or use content like that in one of my other messages around, hey, you don't have experience of something to still go have a great day. But it's like living with that. Like, I am trying to get better at this, so I'm constantly in search of like what are the things that I can use just in the world around me to make me better. And then it does become fun. I mean, Steve, you're probably the same way. Like I will lose an hour here or there on YouTube just studying great speeches. And like, okay, now why did that move me? What did he say there? Oh, I liked how he'd paused there. I liked how he used his eye contact there. Eye contact is a big one. I mean, I learned this from a public speaking class I took like 20 years ago, where people talk about the use of eye contact. Like if I'm talking to you the full time and I'm never breaking eye contact, it's actually a little creepy. But if through the natural course of talking to you, if I'm looking down, and I'm maybe using my hands, but if I want to deliver a really big punch or a big part of the discussion, I'll raise my eye contact and look right at you, and that causes more of that connection and that emotion. But there are these really important ways in which we communicate that are easy to find and learn out there, but you got to be intentional and go study it and go do it.
You're the best at finding the right story, and I think the reason why, Bert, is because, and this is like leaders need to cross over, but you see the value in a story as a tool to help shape thinking and to help get people where you want to go. And it's a mindset. But like once that stories matter, you sort of, it's like a burden in a way, but you're always thinking about it. Like what is this story and how could I use this? And I think you have to be clear about the problem you're trying to solve right now in your business, with your people, whatever. But then you're always on the hunt, because when you hear something like that, you're like, that's it. That's the message that's going to get people over the hump to like think in this way or do this or be inspired toward this.
Yeah. It's also interesting just at the company level because data is not inspiring. We've talked about the
nobody cares
earnings calls. Like that's not inspiring. That's not exciting to hear. But if you do pull out beautiful stories or highlights and you can add some color to it, then all of a sudden you have something that's captivating and worth listening to.
And I actually think old movies are great for that because they didn't have special effects. They didn't have these elaborate sets. All they really had was like dialogue and writing and good acting.
What's a good old movie? What's your favorite?
Well, I love It's a Wonderful Life. I love Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I love a John Wayne movie called The Searchers, another one called The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. We were laughing, I think, a few days ago. I watched a Disney movie with my kids that I hadn't seen in forever, Mary Poppins. And it's so powerful. I mean, I was like weeping off to the side because I'm just watching this thing take place that I had never seen as a kid before, and it's just unbelievable writing. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, how this character is communicating with this character. Is there a way that I could do something similar to that? And so again, it's not that you watch an old Western and that makes you be a better speaker because you're like, I'm not a cowboy, I don't know. But no, but it's understanding like the words they're using and the way that they're using them and the points that they're making is what can start to shape you to be a better messenger. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, love it.
How do you balance transparency in messaging to a leader? If you are messaging something that maybe isn't the most positive, or if you're narrating a journey that is not necessarily a positive one and you're narrating a journey through hardship, do you think that there's kind of an art to that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think so long as you're speaking from like what I call from the heart, and you're really, and it's written all over your face that this is as honest as you can be, I think you're going to get a lot of grace there. If you're delivering some sort of a hard message, and it's important to acknowledge that this is really hard for me. I hate it. It just eats me up to have to share this with you. But it's important that you know. I also think there is a way, and this is not for everybody, but there is a way that you can do it with using some humor and some levity that makes that better.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of like, you got to be careful that you're not trivializing an issue that's important to somebody, but you can do it, and it is one of my favorite forms of communicating in a way that just lets all the pressure out of the room.
I think there's actually something refreshing about telling a story when a person is still in it. A couple years ago, we were at a conference, and Natalie Brooks, who's one of my favorite people who works at Insight Global, and she was so brave. She got up on stage, and this was in the midst of so many speeches of people who endured hardship and told their story of difficulty, but then they triumphed in the end. And then another person came up and told their story of being gritty, and then they triumphed in the end. And then another one, and this was my struggle, but then I succeeded. And Natalie went up there. She's like, and this was my struggle, and haven't triumphed.
Yeah, I remember that speech.
So I am in it.
Yeah.
And it was so awesome and so just like refreshing and so beautifully done. And I think she did it very well with levity, but still with a level of seriousness that related to people in the audience to say, I hear you and I'm still with you. But I think that if you do weave it with that positivity and that hope, you can land it well, and people actually can feel confidence that you are in tune with the way that the audience is perhaps feeling as well, and you can go through that hard time together. But that's always an interesting one when you're wading through difficult times together.
It's the truth. Like that's the best stories are true stories, and that's what people want.
Yep, agreed.
And if you can hit him with it, and Bert's so good at it, because Bert will find a way to go talk to someone who's like on the inside of whatever's going on, and then he'll just get the truth. And then when you least expect it, it's like, here's the truth. And he kind of does it with like a little bit of a little humor, a little poking fun at it. And then, and then the air's out of the room, and it's like, well, I guess we're not going to do that anymore. So
I just know in my role, I've got an army of people trying to keep bad news from me. And it's
everything's fine, sir. No, everything on the ground's good. No problem.
Nobody's fault. It's not their fault. But
it's like beep boop beep.
Yeah.
Hey, real talk. How's it going?
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, but that's actually the superpower. Is to, like, if you want to tell the right story, you have to know where the people who are gonna.
Right.
You have to understand your audience.
Yeah, that's the thing. You never want to.
Exactly.
My biggest fear is not that I'm going to tell a story that like doesn't move people.
Right.
Is that I'm going to tell a story, or I'm going to communicate something that gets eye rolled, where people are like
out of touch.
You don't get it, man. That is not what I'm worried about. That is not my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Why are you on me about this? That means nothing to me. How disconnected are you? And that, like, you have no grace as a communicator when you're trying to communicate a message that comes across as out of touch. It's not that people are like, oh, I think you got that wrong. They hate you actually for it.
Yep.
So that is
as one of my favorite things for leaders to learn, the concept of projection, where it's so common as humans that we like to take our reality, our challenges, the stuff I'm going through, and just project it onto others. But it's great, like, it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
Because if you do that without thinking and without really understanding your audience, you can totally run right past people, and you've let go, you're ripping it, but it just doesn't land.
I mean, you're a fool.
You're a fool.
And you're communicating to people, I'm a fool.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's so, like, Bert, can you talk about that? Like, how do you go get the tea? How do you go get where the audience is? You're the CEO, yeah,
well,
Bert,
I think
good.
I really think it starts with really wanting to understand people's pain and understand or their triumph, and really trying to put yourself there and be empathetic, I think, and really, like, I'm trying to always search for like what is real and what matters most, and then it's not that hard. You just got to do some digging. I mean, that's why I travel to offices as much as I can. I mean, I was in Miami this week speaking on stage to the whole staffing industry at the SIA Executive Forum, and it was great. But while I was there, I wanted to make sure that I was able to spend 2 days at the Miami office to spend time going to breakfast with our junior account managers, and spending time with our account managers in training that are trying to get promoted, and asking questions like, what's working for you, what's not working for you, what's really going on. And yeah, I'm the CEO, and so they're going to be a little guarded, but again, being a communicator, it's all about how you get into those conversations and how you make people feel safe, that you can kind of get the right info. And then it does help that I've done this job before.
Yep.
So I'm already starting with a huge advantage there. I already know what were the things that I didn't like and what were the things that, were a struggle for me. And it's not that different, right? It's not that different. It's just a few years later.
Yeah, I think the best stories, like, because you might hear a good story and be like, that was awesome. Or you might see a good movie, that was great. I think the best ones are ones where you can imagine yourself as the main character. Like the challenges that person's going through, what they're living through. I think other stories just hit harder when you're like, yeah, like whatever that main character was battling, like that's kind of where I am now.
That could be
Especially
me, or I
it's
want
where
that
I've
to
been.
be me.
Especially what's wild, going back to music, why music can be the really good songwriter can be so effective is you can connect with so much of it, but you're not actually at all connecting with that. Like you have nothing in common with that country music singer. You don't have a pickup truck or a dog or a wife that left you, but you're like, whoa, this guy is dropping something that I'm like totally connecting with right now, right? And that is across all genres, and that is really interesting.
I forget the name of the book, but there was a book that came out in 2004 about the what is it called? Mount Vesuvius, the volcanic eruption.
Yeah. In Pompeii.
Pompeii. I think that was the name of it. Maybe.
Yeah, Mount Vesuvius.
Like in 2004, this book was like number 1 on the charts. It was like I read it. It's like an average book, but about a day that just everyone's life changed. It's like, why was that book so popular in 2004? Because in 2001, 9/11 happened, and we all experienced something that forever shattered, right? And I think there's just
that's interesting.
There's certain things like when you can see your lived experience in the thing, like you're just that much more likely to.
We don't need to go down a Pompeii tangent, but holy shit, Pompeii! How crazy is that? That just happened. Just volcano erupted, whole city covered. Have you guys been there?
I have. Yeah.
Clearly, you have.
Yeah. Wild.
I've not.
Really crazy.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah, more of a U.S. guy. We'll talk about that in a later episode.
It's just the outlets that jam me up. If I could use my same outlet, I'd go. But I got to get the connector.
The adapter.
Doesn't always work. It's kind of bulky.
Yeah. To bring us home, closing tips for a person who wants to get started on improving their story and messaging ability today. What is their starter kit to homing this craft?
I would say find some, as Steve pointed out, find some framework or find some literature that you can read and study and start to understand like what that looks like for you, just to use as a starter. And then I would say start writing, get your thoughts out of your head, get them on paper. There's amazing things that happen to us every single day, and we wad them up and throw them away like little pieces of trash because we never write them down and we never document them. And there's all sorts of gold stuff there that you can use to help you communicate. And then study it. Study communicator. Study people that give speeches. Whatever your domain or discipline is, you can learn anything you want on the internet now, on YouTube.
Yep.
Go to YouTube and start to make it a focus.
Love it. And practice. Tell stories. You have people who care. Tell your husband. Tell your dog.
Yeah, mine would be that when you're thinking about the next time you're going to speak, ask yourself the question: how do I want the people who listen to me speak to feel? How do I want them to feel? And then as you're speaking, don't worry as much about the notes. Just make sure you're playing the song. Too often people get too stuck and they're like, I got to say this perfect thing and whatever. I think it's a really great first step to just be able to hit the mark of I want to inspire people. Okay, cool. If I want to be inspiring to others, I better be inspired. So go get on YouTube and watch the Rice Stadium Moon speech and then by JFK. And then as you're speaking, don't worry so much about the notes of what you're saying. Worry about the song you're playing and make sure that you're speaking and seeing people feel the emotion you want them to feel. Like that's when the magic starts to happen.
Well, there you have it. The power of messaging.
All right. See you guys later.
See you, everybody. Thank you.